Okay. First of all, I want to welcome back the veteran members of the work group, now task force. And also a hearty welcome to our new members as they join us. I know Daniel has joined us, and we're waiting for a couple of the others who have indicated they will be with us. I want to also thank Chairwoman Davila for releasing both monikers again to this committee, so they become an integral part of our thinking and provide us with a great deal more support than we're probably entitled to. In any case, I would like to simply pass this along to my co-chair, Ms. Tanisha Sullivan, who will also bring greetings and some other things as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Contompasas. It is indeed good to see everyone, and wonderful to have the opportunity to engage in this important work on behalf of the students and families of the Boston Public Schools, and truly on behalf of our city as a whole. We have today an organizational meeting, so we will be relatively brief. But before we get started, I do want to invite Ms. Parvex to call the roll.
Thank you. Mr. Acevedo is out. Ms. Aguirre, she's absent. Mr. Kreger. Dr. Freeman Wisdom. Ms. Grassa.
Here, present.
Ms. Lum.
Present.
Mr. Morales.
Present.
Ms. Nagasawa. Ms. Garrett.
Present.
Ms. Tang.
Present.
Ms. Wade. Ms. Sullivan.
Present.
And Mr. Contompasas.
Present.
Ms. Parvex, I do believe that Mr. Kreger may be in the panel, it may be in the attendee section. Could we please pull him up?
I will do that.
Thank you.
And Ms. Nagasawa too.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful.
Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you.
Ms. Parvex, do you need to call their names again for the record?
No, it's fine. I have them. I put them down. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Without further ado, I'd like to pass this along to the chairwoman of the school committee to bring welcome, and also to the vice chair, Mr. O'Neill, who may have a few words to say. So without further ado, Chairwoman Davila.
Thank you so much, Mr. Contompasas. I want to especially thank you, and especially thank Ms. Sullivan for agreeing to co-chair this task force. I want to thank all of the veterans from the working group, and to welcome the new working group members. As a person who has sat in working groups and task forces, I realize how much work you have already put forth and how much more work you're going to put forth. And I know you have your own, day jobs and your own families and responsibilities, and it is additional time for you. So I just really thank you on behalf of the school committee, my school committee colleagues, and on behalf of the Boston Public School community, all of our families and all of our students, as you take on this very important work. As the working group, when you were a working group, we heard back from the community that they would like us to add some additional people to this task force. And so we've added 2 students, and we've added a 5th grade parent and someone with a research background. So welcome to all of those new members. We're really, really happy to have you with us. And in terms of the charge of this group, as we put forth at one of our school committee meetings in January, we would like for you to develop a set of recommendations that will expand the applicant pool for BPS exam schools and such that rigor is maintained and that the student body better reflects the racial, socioeconomic, and geographical diversity of all K-12 students in the city of Boston. We're also asking that you consider the use of the new NWEA assessment and other factors, and also to use the learnings from a full review of the implementation for school year 21 and 22, so that we can see what are the lessons learned, and also asking for there to be some public sessions so that we can hear back from the community. I know that you all will be undertaking that. So again, I just want to welcome you. I just want to say thank you. We're hoping that you'll be able to come back to the school committee at the end of May, early June, to give us your recommendations. So I would like to pass it now to the vice chair, Mr. O'Neill, if he has any comments that he would like to say. Thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to build on your comments, I just want to echo what you said. The use of working groups and task forces is how the school committee tackles some of the most important issues that we do, to bring together representatives from across our community. And here we have school leaders, parents, students, community activists, researchers. This is really important for us, for you to be able to dig in on this critical issue for us, to look at it in depth. I thank the working group, or we thank the working group for the work that you did initially to get us to this point, and now move it to a task force, which means that all the work you do is subject to open meeting law, that folks can watch and listen and have an opportunity to give you feedback at each of your meetings. It does change the complexity of the meetings, but it adds a richness to the work that you can do. So folks can see and understand and give you feedback at each step along the way. The school committee, all of us appreciate your willingness to do this hard work and the commitment it's going to take for you over the next couple of months. But this will affect hopefully generations of students in Boston Public Schools. So the last time we did a comprehensive change in the admissions policy was a number of years ago, and it is time to be refreshed. So thank you all for the work that you're about to undertake, and particular thanks to Ms. Sullivan and Mr. Konopassis for their leadership work on this. It is deeply appreciated. So we look forward to supporting you every step of the way and to the outcome of your work, your research, your listening, and your thought process. And we're glad to bring the resources at BPS, and also, quite frankly, the resources beyond that. So we're going to be reaching out to other districts that have faced issues such as this and try to bring those resources to bear for you to consider. We'll make available resources from the experts in assessments and how that may impact the work that you're doing, legal experts, communication experts, and other. So don't be afraid to ask if you need support as you do your work. But thank you very much for what you're all undertaking.
Thank you very much, Chair Davila and Vice Chair O'Neill. Thank you both for your leadership and for entrusting this important work to us. We actually look forward to this process and the full engagement, not only of the members, but also of the community. So with that, I do think we do have some slides we're going to project for folks as well, if we can share those. But before we do, just so that the public has an opportunity to heard the names, but we do want to give the public an opportunity to know a little bit more about each of the members of the task force. So we're going to ask everyone to just introduce themselves by name and the connection to Boston Public Schools. And we're going to begin with Mr. Kreger.
Sure. Matt Kreger, Staff Attorney, Mental Health Legal Advisors Committee, parent of Boston Public Schools students, and education attorney.
Thank you. Ms. Grassa?
Katie Grassa, principal at Curly K-8, resident, lifelong resident of Dorchester and BLA alum.
Ms. Lum?
Hi, South End resident, former BPS employee, fundraiser for Boston Latin Academy Association and parent of a Boston Latin Academy student.
Thank you. Mr. Morales?
Daniel Morales. I am a BPS student and also a BPS community member working alongside BSAC and the equity department on their student design team.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Nagasawa?
Hi, I'm Zoe Nagasawa, and I am currently a senior at Boston Latin School.
Ms. Scarrett?
Hello, Rachel Scarrett, head of school at Boston Latin School and alumna of the school.
Ms. Tung?
Hi, I'm a Boston resident, a parent of a BPS alum, and I have 20 years of research focused on Boston Public Schools and equity.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Contemposis?
I'm a retired administrator, teacher from the Boston Public Schools, having served pretty close to half a century in the district.
Wonderful. I'm Tanisha Sullivan. I'm president of the NAACP Boston branch. I'm the former chief equity officer for the Boston Public Schools, and I'm a Hyde Park resident. In addition to, and you heard this in the introduction, in addition to the members of the task force, we're very fortunate to have support from members of the BPS Central Office leadership team. And so, Ms. Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Monica Roberts. I'm the Chief of Student Family and Community Advancement, also a BPS grad, as are all of my siblings. I will shout out BLA.
and Ms. Hogan.
Hi, I'm Monica Hogan. I'm the Senior Executive Director of the Office of Data and Accountability.
Wonderful. And as Mr. O'Neill mentioned, as we move through this process, we will look for opportunities to add additional supports from really just the wealth of experts and thought leaders and those who are experiencing selective school exam school admissions to our work. As we deem appropriate as we move through this process. So with that, we do want to, if we can put up slide, I think it's 3. Slide 4. Thank you. So this is an organizational meeting. And so we wanted to, for the task force, give us all an opportunity to take a look at these draft working agreements, just to confirm that this is consistent with how we all agree to work through this process. And certainly want to pause for a moment if any member of the task force has a question or would like to make an addition. We can do so at this time.
Ms. Sullivan, I do have a thought that I'd like to at least share with the group, if I may, that is in addition to this working agreement. And that is that as we move through the 3 to 4 months that we have together, that since this will be a public, a series of public sessions, we in the work group of the previous work group made it a point to make certain that we were very careful with media or any outside group that might ask us individually for an opinion of one thing or another. I realize we're now in open session
Mhm.
But again, I would just simply suggest that as a friendly comment, if you will.
Comment is noted. Can we as a task force can we, I will entertain a motion actually to adopt the working agreement by the task force. And I cannot see you, so I will need you to raise your, actually, could we stop sharing for a moment just so we can go back to, perfect.
I move to adopt the working agreement.
I second.
Thank you. That was Matt Kreger and Ms. Lum. Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
I also support these working agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Is there any objection to adopting these working agreements? No? Great. Thank you. So we will, again, this is a task force. And, you know, the point here is for us to have some agreement about how we will engage. If as we move through this process, they're not working for us, we can always make some adjustments. But just to kind of give us an opportunity to lay some foundations for how we'll engage in this process. We also wanted to talk a little bit about, want to share with folks, and we'll put another slide up, our timeline as projected. And it's slide 5, I believe. We're in our organizational phase right now. As we move into March, we're going to be very intentional about scheduling not only our task force meetings, but also community listening sessions. And so that we have an opportunity to hear from our community stakeholders, students, parents, families, and other community stakeholders on this topic. We'll also spend some time getting an understanding of how the rollout and implementation of the emergency exam school admission policy is going. And we'll also review kind of what's happening in other districts around the country that are also wrestling with this issue. In April, that's when we really start to formulate do some ideation, I would say, around what the criteria and mechanisms may be for a permanent solution. We'll also do some simulations, but most importantly here, I do want to flag that in April, our intention is to have draft recommendations that will then be able to have some additional community sessions, listening sessions around to get some feedback. And then going into May, be able to take into consideration the feedback that we're hearing from the community and from our stakeholders before preparing the final recommendations for submission to the school committee. It is our intention to submit to the school committee the policy recommendations in May for the school committee to take action as it deems appropriate thereafter. If we could go to the next slide, please. As it relates to meetings, it is our intention to meet once per week, March through April, and then toward the end of April, moving into May, to transition into twice weekly, meeting twice weekly. Each session, each meeting of the task force will be going forward, will be a minimum of 90 minutes. Each of the scheduled meetings will be a minimum of 90 minutes. And of course, each session each meeting will include time for public comment. It is our intention to allocate 30 minutes of each meeting for public comment. And again, to hold a minimum of 2 community listening sessions in addition to other stakeholder outreach and engagement. For today, because we have an hour meeting scheduled, public comment will be for 15 minutes. But again, going forward, we will allocate 30 minutes for public comment in addition to the listening sessions that we will have scheduled and other stakeholder engagement opportunities. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Contompassis.
Okay, thank you. I want to stress the fact that the 90-minute session minimum is a minimum. You know, we in the past with the work group scheduled 90 minutes and it usually ran into 2 hours. So I would upfront suggest that on meeting days that you block out at least 2 hours. And if we're done in 90 minutes, then we'll, break for the evening. We need, as a result of all of this, and you can see that this timeline is pretty intensive. When we talk about listening sessions, those will also be part of our meetings, as Tanisha mentioned, over the 30 minutes. But we also would like to schedule listening sessions outside of our normal meeting schedule. And so we have discussed the idea of leaving, at least this evening, with a tentative timeline, date, day of the week. We'd like to schedule it so it is a standard meeting on a certain date of the week. And as I've suggested, for 90 minutes to 2 hours. We have discussed perhaps doing a doodle poll if we have to. But the work group in its negotiations last time around met on Friday afternoons from 5 to 7. I think everyone in the group understands that perhaps Friday may not be the ideal time to meet. I think we established Friday in the past because everybody was so busy, we didn't have any other time except Fridays. But since this has become a pretty important piece of the school committee's agenda and the district's agenda, we would like to at least offer the following. As Tanisha mentioned, we would like to meet 1 day a week up until the April vacation. We will not meet during the April vacation because most of you probably have other things that you might like to do. Beginning after that vacation and running until May, we will meet twice weekly. So we also want 2 of the listening sessions to be on a Saturday morning. The first Saturday to be as early as possible to the beginning of the task force work. And the second being probably, as was mentioned by Ms. Sullivan, right after an initial draft has been designed so that we can then put it out to the public and get the necessary critique or the constructive criticism and or suggestions that might come forward. So having said all of that, tentatively, Ms. Sullivan and I discussed perhaps moving the Friday session to Tuesday and scheduling the meeting on Tuesdays from 6 to 8 in the evening, beginning on Tuesday.
Mr. Condon, Mr.
Yes.
Condon, is it 6 to 8 or 5 to 7?
Thank you. It's 5 to 7. 5 to 7, thank you. I'm reading my notes here incorrectly. Beginning on March 9th, with a possibility of having the first Saturday session on the 13th at a location to be determined, whatever, probably by Zoom anyways. And then every Tuesday thereafter, up until the April vacation at the same time, and has been mentioned, 30 minutes of those sessions will be for public comment. And then beginning the week after the April vacation, we can move either to a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Friday session. I purposely have avoided Wednesdays because in most instances, it either conflicts with a school committee meeting or there are a whole host of other meetings that people get engaged in. No matter what we do, there will be times possibly that a member or two may not be able to make a particular session. But, we understand that. So the options are as follows.
Mr.
we
Condon,
can- Go
may I,
ahead.
my apologies. Just one note, with our first meeting, and this is, I'm getting a ping on this, just a quick note is that I do believe there may be that first week in March because of budget season, a bit of a conflict with Tuesday. So just as a heads up, we will confirm whether indeed there is a conflict, if there is with the school committee. And if there is indeed a conflict, we will actually look to meet on Wednesday of that week. But we will confirm that with the group.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess our options are to set aside Tuesdays as our meeting day, beginning, as we mentioned, on the 9th or possibly the 10th. And then it will be subsequent Tuesdays until April vacation. And then Tuesdays from 5 to 7. And then Thursday, I believe, Ms. Sullivan, we talked about 6 to 8 if we choose Thursdays. Or if we choose Fridays, it'll be 5 to 7. Those Saturday sessions, as I've suggested, we'd like to do one early. We said the 13th. We don't want to do it later than the 20th. And we would like to do one either the last week of April or the first weekend in May, depending on whether we get, how fast we're able to get our work done. Have I left anything out, Ms. Sullivan?
No, it's perfect. We do want to, for the task force, we realize this is a lot of information. Again, this is an organizational meeting. So this is a lot of information. You will receive something, in writing so that you can, and calendar holds and all of that good stuff so that you can manage your time accordingly. The expectation is that you're not, that you don't have to capture all of this in the moment. But I think, yes, that covers it. Okay.
Comments, folks? Going what? What?
Sorry, just early heads up. I appreciate your understanding that there'll be some in and outs, especially for school leaders as we plan the calendar for the entire school year. And I know that Dr. Freeman Wisdom and the OB team tonight has school site council, and it's a Tuesday. I do my school site council on Tuesdays and equity roundtables on Tuesdays and things that are fairly fixed. So we'll be here as much as we can, but there are some known Tuesday conflicts. But as you and Ms. Sullivan mentioned, there aren't many days of the week that don't have conflicts right now, so we'll do our best. But I don't know, Ms. Graza, if you have any standing Tuesday.
Yeah, I also school site council on Tuesdays, but not this Tuesday. So I second everything Ms. Garrett just said. I will be here as many times as I can.
Thank you.
BLA also has school site council and school parent council on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Is that once a month, gang? It's once a month.
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Probably you're not all synced though for the same Tuesday. I would suspect, knowing you all as well as I do. But we tried to stay away. We thought about Monday, but Monday seems to be problematic as well. And, you know, I'm trying to be,
Well, there's always Friday night.
there's always Friday night. And I know that you all have better things to do, probably.
Well, we'll work it out. And certainly we'll take another look at the calendar. We'll take another look at when the meetings are scheduled. What's most important is that, you know, we, to the extent possible, we do want to avoid conflicts, which is one of the reasons why we're meeting in the evenings, right? And we don't have the mornings or daytime scheduled as well. So we will take another look to see what's possible. I mean, certainly if we're not able to achieve a quorum on a particular day, that means that we need to make adjustments. So we can loop back around. Ms. Tung?
I just wanted to know, if we miss a meeting, can we view the recording? And also, is there a listserv for this group as another form of communication?
So yes, you can view the recording. All of our meetings, all of our communications relative to this matter are subject to open meeting law. So the recordings are available not only to task force members, but to any individual who would like to have access to it. And there is no listserv. Primarily because, again, our meeting is subject to open meeting law. And so any conversation that we have, any discussion of the issues, any debate on the issues as a collective must be done in the public. And so a listserv would not provide for that. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Looks good. And again, we'll take another look at the calendar just to see where the conflicts lie. It's going to be tough, but we will do the best we can in identifying kind of that fixed date to meet for the duration of this process. And folks will get calendar invites as well. With that, let's see here. I think we're ready to turn to our public comment. Mr. Contemposis?
Yep. We have scheduled 15 minutes roughly. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Parvik to start the public comment.
Thank you. So for today's meeting, we will follow the standard rules for the school committee for public comment, which means each person gets 3 minutes per person. And please state your name, affiliation, and what neighborhood you are from before beginning. And when I call your name, please raise your hand virtually in Zoom. And please make sure you're signed into Zoom with the same name you used to sign up for public comment, so I can identify you. Our first speaker is Cheryl Robinson. So Cheryl Robinson, if you're here, I don't see Miss Robinson. Yeah. I will go for the next person. It's Tan Bui. Tan Bui, if you're here, please raise your hand. No. Next speaker is Sharon Hinton. I think I saw Sharon Hinton. There. Sharon Hinton.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Hinton. I am a homeowner in Hyde Park, an educator, a mother. I attended Boston Public Schools, as did my daughter. The history of the exam schools is storied and troubling, not unlike the history of BLS and BPS. In 2021, there are only 1% of SPED students and 0.2 ELL in all of the 3 exam schools combined, and that's based on the DESE number. As the exam school issue looms over the current election cycle and gets bandied about with discussions about elected versus appointed school committee, the vote and compensation for the student rep, reopening BPS, school closings, and the budget, I'd like everyone to keep this in focus, this goal in mind. BPS must provide a quality education for all students and not just an elite that meets certain standards. I feel that these students, although they do work hard, it makes them feel special and they're told that they're smarter, but it is really because they've been better trained at taking an exam. Over the last few months, I've heard statements and comments around the lack of the exam school access for Black and Brown students, and that an indication of intelligence is the reason why, but it isn't. Exam schools and exams have further served to reinforce white supremacy, racism, and oppression in our educational system. And even if you or your child makes it into an exam school and gets to take advantage of the disproportionately allocated resources, especially for BLS and BLA, it doesn't mean that it's okay. And it's definitely not okay for everyone. The statements made by certain parents regarding the zip code usage to increase access and admission rates highlights the ignorance of the history of the Boston School Department and the miseducation of Black and Brown students. Yes, providing a quality education for your child is important. However, if anyone thinks that Black and Brown parents don't want the same for their children, I respond, you are woefully ignorant, and it may not be all your fault because you weren't properly educated. And it's not just BPS, it's a nationwide problem. And it's another reason why Black teachers matter. I'm the president of Black Teachers Matter. I know the importance of representation and having Black and Brown teachers. I encourage this group to actually have interpretation and various interpretations in different languages when you do the public comment sessions, because that's one of the reasons that parents have felt marginalized, because they don't understand what is being said that's actually determining their education and the futures for their children. So thank you for all of you guys sacrificing all this time and volunteering. I've seen a lot of you in a lot of different circles. I admire you and I encourage you to do your best work. I know you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment. We will have interpreters at all of our sessions, beginning with the first full session in March. Next.
Next speaker is Robin Gomez. Robin Gomez, if you're here, please raise your hand. And I don't see you. I think that's all. That's all the public comment we have for today.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there any further comments from task force members at this time? Yes, Ms. Lum.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. What is the process for ensuring that listening sessions, community sessions are communicated as broadly as possible to the community. I noticed we have a little over 50 total participants. I don't know if that includes the panelists or not, but that's obviously a very small drop in the water of the overall BPS community. So I'm just curious to know how we encourage more engagement.
Wonderful. So I'm going to hand that over to Ms. Roberts to respond to. I think it's twofold. I think one question is, how do we ensure that the community is aware of these meetings and is able to participate? And then just as a note of comparison, it would be helpful to know, what community participation is for other task forces.
Thank you. So I think one of the things we can do in our office is work with the communications team to make sure we're getting information out both to our families and our community partners. I think certainly this is an issue that is going to be of interest to a very broad audience. So we can do some of that work, including folks who have attended some of their prior meetings last year. So we can take some of the lead in working with the communications team on that. In terms of participation on other task forces, I think this is probably about that, but I will say as we start to have more discussion and folks are more aware of sort of the opportunities and options being discussed, I do expect this task force to have more participation. So,
but I just want to make a note that I just want to make sure we're clear that from a task force participation standpoint, like community engagement, do you typically see hundreds of people coming, or is it about 40 to 50? Or is it lower?
No, 40 to 50, and sometimes less, depending on which task force. So I think I don't expect that to stay the same for this one, but.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Monica, does the communications team have access to all of the community groups that might be represented as part of the BPS family, so that we have a way of communicating the meeting times and dates of this task force to the Citywide Parents Council, the SPED PACs, the English language learner folk, across the board, particularly on those Saturday sessions. We would like to see as much outreach as possible to the other groups that may be neighborhood by neighborhood, if we can get that kind of output. I know the district, because this is an open meeting, has to post this at City Hall, and it's posted, I think, on the BPS website. But the point is that if we can communicate the schedule in its entirety across the entire city, it would be extremely helpful. I don't know whether we can do public comment. Not public comment, but put it on the radio or whatever as an announcement. We should do whatever we can. And I just don't know the capacity of the communications team to be able to do this.
Agreed.
We noted, I also have someone on retainer in my office to support with communication. So between our two offices, we should be able to get some support to make sure we're reaching a broad audience. We know we also need to be reaching out to our community-based organizations and our partners who are serving our diverse communities, as well as our media outlets that are also doing so. So we'll put a plan together and make sure we advertise the full schedule once we have it.
Wonderful, thank you. I know this is, this can be, the virtual meetings can be challenging at times. Bless you, Monica, and happy birthday, Ms. Hogan.
And to Ms. Roberts.
And to Ms.
Just
Oh,
there.
okay.
We share a name and a birthday.
Happy birthday. I know, exactly, right? So, and that gets to my point. I know this feels a little, this is new terrain for many of us. But what's most important, we've gotta, this work requires that we roll up our sleeves and we get into it. And so I want us to feel comfortable engaging in dialogue. And until we get there fully, we'll be intentional about trying to pull, feedback from the team here. But as we prepare to close, Mr. Content-Pasas, I'd like to give everyone an opportunity just to go around. Let's go around the room here and see if there's anything that folks want to say as we prepare to close. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'll begin with Ms. Grassa, and then next up will be Zoe Nagasawa. So Katie Grassa.
I'm sorry, I could just my
my
final
apologies.
thoughts.
Just your final thoughts as we prepare to close.
Got it. I look forward to working on this committee and doing what's best for the students of the city of Boston.
Thank you. Zoe Nagasawa.
Yeah, I'm excited to work with this committee and to hear from the community about this issue.
Wonderful. Rachel Scarrett.
Appreciate the transparency of, folks being able to engage throughout the process and having that inform our process as a task force.
Zenalum.
Thank you. It's a privilege and an honor to be serving on this task force with everyone here, and echoing Rachel's sentiment that if we can drive community engagement, it will help inform our process further.
Roseanne Tung.
Hi, thank you for having me on this task force. I look forward to working with all of you and to the interesting conversations we will have. And I appreciated the thoroughness of the charge. I want to read it again, but just listening to it was helpful.
Daniel Morales.
I'm just highly anticipating the experience to work with all you on this task force. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to see what progress we can truly make to reach an equitable exam school admission process for students.
Wonderful. Mr. Content-Pasas.
Not much, just to say thank you to all of you. This is an extremely important charge, and I want to thank you for volunteering.
Agreed, indeed. Well, would those celebrating birthdays today like to share anything? Monica Hogan, before we break out into happy birthday Stevie Wonder style.
Just excited to be working with you all. Singing on Zoom. Mr. Content-Pasas promised that he was going to sing. Just a big thank you for all of you all for this work. I'm really looking forward to work with you, and certainly Monica and I are committed to supporting you in whatever way you need. So let us know.
Thank you. Monica Hogan.
I echo Monica, just honored to be here and staff this working group and help make sure you have the information you need to make the decisions that lie ahead.
Thank you. And I too am excited about the work and the charge. So thank you all for your commitment in advance. And if there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Content-Pasas, is there a second?
Second.
Roseanne Tung. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Ms. Parvex, could you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Grassa,
Present.
Ms. Lum,
Present.
Mr. Morales,
Present.
Ms. Nagasawa,
Present.
Ms. Garrett,
Present.
Ms. Tung,
Present.
Ms. Sullivan,
Yes.
Content-Pasas.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.